Folks, let me show y'all that this whole COVID-19 nonsense is a complete fraud, okay? Let me show you exactly how they are telling physicians to mark down death as COVID-19 no matter how the patient dies. What we're seeing here is a cdc.gov, as you can see, that's a cdc.gov website. This is a PDF on guidance for certifying deaths due to COVID, or I should say Corona Disease 2009, COVID-19. All right, but take a look at the conclusion, okay? And all you have to do is read the conclusion. It'll tell you everything right here. Here's where you're going to start right here in the conclusion, all right? It says, an accurate count of the number of deaths due to COVID-19 infection, which depends in part on proper death certification, is critical to ongoing public health surveillance and response. When a death is due to COVID-19, it is likely the UCOD, other causes of death, and thus it should be reported on the lowest line used in Part 1 of the death certificate, okay? Ideally, testing for COVID-19 should be conducted, but it is acceptable. And I want y'all to read this right here, okay? It is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate without this confirmation if the circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree of certainty. Now, what the CDC is advising physicians to do is if anybody dies for any reason, heart attacks, pneumonia, diabetes complications, lower respiratory disease, whatever, all right, Alzheimer's, whatever, they are saying that if there's some observable symptoms of COVID-19, that it is applicable to put COVID-19 as the cause of death, and it says it right here in the conclusion, on the lowest line in Part 1 of the death certificate, right here. All right, the lowest line in Part 1 of the death certificate, that's where they're saying that you should mark COVID-19 as cause of death, even if, all right, the cause of death is is something else. And this right here is the cdc.gov PDF. And that's why you're seeing these spikes in so-called COVID deaths. Now, for the president suggesting that the testing is the reasoning why we're having this big explosion, there's a bunch of reasons for that, okay? First and foremost, the test. I mean, they are not even a real test that diagnoses real COVID-19 infection. As a matter of fact, there's 3 different types of tests. And what's unfortunate is that everybody just believes these doctors and these so-called virologists and these so-called scientists, etc. And meanwhile, what they are doing is just completely lying to the public. All right, and let me just explain to you this right here, okay? Let me show you some data here for you folks that are out here. I'm going to show you something for me suggesting that the tests, all right, probably have something to do with the reasoning why we're having this big explosion, all right? This is out of the Washington Post, so you idiots out here don't think that it's fake news. Take a look at this. CDC, coronavirus tests were likely contaminated. Federal review confirms. So what this means is, folks, is that all these tests that are out here that are being conducted, in some cases mandatorily conducted either by employers or by hosts of big events, whatever, here you have the CDC passing out tainted, contaminated tests to test for corona. The damn tests have corona, folks, okay? The tests have corona. Even a federal review confirms this shit. So for all you folks that are out there that are suggesting and falling for this nonsense that, oh my God, we have an increase in COVID-19 cases, and oh my God, this is why the president has suggested that the testing, we need to focus a little bit on the testing. What is diagnosing these people? Okay, first and foremost. And secondly, what's the test being used to diagnose these people? And are the tests themselves, as you can see here in the Washington Post, are the tests themselves actually contaminated with COVID-19 as a federal review confirms? I personally believe that this COVID-19 is being overinflated by 1,000 times, if you want my opinion. Okay, and the reason I suggest this is because right now, especially in the so-called hotspot states, You've got surgeries that would have been otherwise taking place in these hospitals not taking place. Cancer patients going to receive their treatments are no longer available. I mean, trips to the hospital, I mean, dare I say, I don't want anything to happen to me because this is the worst time to go to the hospital right now. Okay? And yet they are all of a sudden miraculously saying that we're having these explosion in COVID-19 cases, when in actuality, folks, we're having this explosion in COVID-19. Pneumonia deaths miraculously have fallen down. Cancer deaths have miraculously fallen down. Heart attack deaths have miraculously fallen down. And why? Because this whole damn thing is set up to bloviate a bunch of numbers of things that are not happening. Now, let me give you something else to think about here. Now, there is a new virus out here that supposedly is out there in China right now. New swine flu in China could morph into cause of another human pandemic, study warns. So now, miraculously, on top of the COVID-19, which was made in China, now, miraculously, China has released another pandemic on the world, supposedly, swine flu. I know there's a lot of folks that find this hard to believe, but what this attack is all about is about globalism versus United States nationalism. All the folks that are out here that are trying to do everything. It's not just COVID-19. It's the riots and the violence that we just recently saw in the past couple of weeks. All in the name of so-called social justice. It's the rogue mayors and the rogue governors that are out here doing and conducting themselves outside the framework of law. I mean, it's all these people that are out here that are trying to take down this country. They're trying to take down this country so that they can centralize power. And what I mean I'm talking about the folks that are in control of the supply chains when it comes to supplying countries of goods and services. I'm talking about the money masters, the people who print the money and the Federal Reserves and central banks all over the damn world. I'm talking about the new and emerging scientists, which are now becoming supra authorities, as opposed to listening to actual people that know what they're doing. All a scientist needs is bureaucratic credibility, like this fucking Tony Fauci. All right, the only thing that gives Tony Fauci any kind of credibility is that he has been a virologist bureaucrat for like 40 years. Okay? We are now seeing the institution of science becoming the supra authority over all authorities, and all they've got to do is claim that there's some infectious disease, an infectious virus, etc. Okay? And then we've got the Silicon Valley oligarchs, which have already succumbed and have submitted to globalism. I'm talking the Jack Dorseys. I'm talking the assholes that literally control Silicon Valley and the social media pipelines, which control mass communication. Now, I want to be honest with you folks, okay? The elites right now, if you want my personal opinion, are going right after Mark Zuckerberg. I know it's hard to believe, but these powers that are consolidating in every industry and every institution globally, they're trying to push out Mark Zuckerberg because Zuckerberg tried to bite off more than he can chew, and he thought that he could single-handedly kind of take over the Silicon Valley oligarch with his Facebook and his Instagram. Now that he's trying to at least have some semblance of freedom of speech on his platforms, which is a joke, because any of you that have been on Facebook or Instagram know it ain't free. But because he refused to censor Trump, miraculously he's become a bad guy. Miraculously, Mark Zuckerberg has become a bad guy. Zuckerberg's own employees are getting up and walking out and staging protests. You've got stockholders calling for the removal of Mark Zuckerberg. And why? All because this guy didn't want to censor Trump? No, it goes deeper than that, folks, all right? Right now we're seeing the consolidation of power. And people are eliminating those that have any kind of influence in attempt at trying to gear the perspective of the masses any other way. And that's what's happening right here, folks. That's why I hope that some of the information that I tell you folks actually reigns supreme, because there's not too many thinking people out here. There's not that many people that are asking questions. There's not that many people that are questioning the authority. I mean, this mask mandate, I'm so disappointed with my governor with this mask mandate. I mean, don't you understand that the masks are actually making you sick? And they make you sick in very different ways, okay? First of all, let's say you have a cardiovascular problem. You know, whether it's in the lungs, whether it's the heart. I mean, what these masks do is prohibit you from actually getting a full breath of oxygen. And to be honest, it can induce a heart attack. It can induce a cardiovascular situation with folks that have weak hearts and don't have the ability to distribute oxygen across the damn body. I mean, this will actually induce a heart attack, first and foremost. Secondly, let's just say for the sake of argument that you can contact or breathe in this COVID-19 through the air, okay? Well, what you're doing is in the masks, okay? You're breathing in whatever it is out there through this mask material. And we all know that it's not surgical masks. We all know that these aren't masks that are actually meant to filter out any kind of impurities. Masks are nothing more than a symbol of control. Because I'm telling you right now, every time you breathe in and breathe out that mask, if you just so happen to be breathing in COVID-19, the flu, or whatever the case might be, you could be giving yourself a bigger viral load, for a lack of a better term, of the virus if you were so-called breathing it in through these materials. I mean, the virus gets stuck in the material, and here you are breathing in, breathing out bigger viral loads of the damn virus, as opposed to just not wearing a mask and breathing normally. All right, I'm telling you all right now, these masks are not to do with our health and has everything to do with control. Everything to do with control. So in my personal view, folks, I think that, you need to start recognizing that we are under attack in many different capacities. And right now, they're trying to bring in this COVID-19 nonsense. All right? COVID-19. And like I said, look, I showed you a report by the Washington Post that said that these damn coronavirus tests are tainted with coronavirus. Here's another one right there for those that don't believe me. All right, coronavirus testing delayed after kits found to be contaminated by COVID-19. All right, COVID-19. So when you see these so-called explosions in COVID-19 infections, it has a lot to do with testing. Now, we don't even ask what the testing is. Now, let me explain to you what the testing entails. Now, it is this long, huge stick that has like cotton on one end of it. And what they do is they stick this stick with cotton all the way up your nostril until they actually get to your sinus, throat, ears, nose, and throat cavity. And what they're supposedly doing is swabbing that and then supposedly kind of putting that under some kind of scientific analysis, and that it's supposed to be positive or negative therein. Okay? I'm not joking around. It's a huge, long stick with a piece of cotton on it, and they just stick it in your nose. Now, how the hell do you know what the hell they're sticking in your nose? You don't. You absolutely don't. As a matter of fact, they could be putting something there that you don't know about that could be infecting you. That's why I keep saying, take a look at this. Coronavirus testing delayed after kits found to be contaminated with the goddamn disease. All right, and that's not all. Let's go back. I just want y'all to recognize, here it is. CDC coronavirus tests were likely contaminated. Federal review confirms. All right, and this is June 20th. This is out once again, the Washington Post. The Washington Post. So the president has a legitimate case when he suggests that the tests themselves could be potentially the culprit behind the rising of these COVID-19 infections. Now, they're already telling us that there is a new virus that is even worse than COVID. New strain of swine flu could be the world's next pandemic. And guess where it's coming from? Guess where it's coming from? China. China. Scientists in China say the strain is becoming more common in pigs. and it has all the essential hallmarks of a potential pandemic virus. And yet, China is nowhere in the debate or nowhere in the conversation in the mainstream media when it comes to these infectious diseases that are now forcing us to be prisoners in our own homes and quarantine, and that are forcing private businesses to shut down. I mean, people need to start asking questions. I mean, that's all I'm asking. I'm not telling you to believe me. I'm giving you documented proof. I mean, this is the Weather Channel here, okay? This is the Weather Channel trying to tell us that, hey, if you thought COVID-19 was bad, you wait till swine flu. And of course, China is never in the conversation when talking about these epidemics, or these pandemics, excuse me. All right? And why? Because China owns most of America. China owns most of the Democratic Party and some of the institutionalists in the Republicans. All right? China owns many of our media, Hollywood, etc. That's why you're not hearing China in the conversation when it comes to these viruses. Are we actually going to ask some questions out here? Or are we just going to obey like a bunch of communist Chinese citizens? All right? We need to recognize that we are being under attack. And if we're going to preserve our Constitution, if we're going to preserve the foundation of our principles, some of us need to start rising up and start telling people, stop being fools. All right? I mean, take a look. I mean, have you seen all the fights that are happening all across the country because people don't want to wear masks, or people that do want to wear masks? The mask is ridiculous. It doesn't stop infection of any kind. All right? I mean, have you seen people with masks out here? They're always fucking with it. You know, they're always adjusting it. I mean, dude, do you understand that whatever's on your fingers, which is where you probably get your infections mostly to begin with, you're fucking putting it all over your mouth and all over your eyes and your nose. I mean, you're basically giving yourself the fucking virus, flu, pneumonia, whatever it is. And like I said, folks, the constriction of oxygen, all right, the lack of oxygen that these masks prohibit is really what's going to have more people sick. If you have a cardiovascular problem, this could induce a heart attack. Okay? And moreover, as I suggested, even if there is COVID-19 in the air, you're breathing it into these fabrics, into these materials, and it's just staying there. It's getting stuck there. So that means you're breathing in and breathing out bigger viral loads of whatever, whether it's COVID, whether it's the flu, whether it's pneumonia. I mean, it's getting people sick. And then they, remember, oh, well, we have to lock down people because, we want to keep people safe. So we want to put you in house arrest, or quarantine. That's what we're going to do to protect you. And guess what? Okay? Guess what? Keeping us indoors could be also making us sick, folks. All right? Here it is. Scientists link vitamin D deficiencies to higher COVID-19 mortality rates. All right? So actually staying indoors, not getting any vitamin D, which the natural source for vitamin D is the sun, folks. It's going out into the sun for about 20, 25 minutes and hanging out and doing some outdoor activity. All right? I mean, here they are. We've got these governments telling us that we have to stay indoors. All right? Here we've got scientists. Remember, everybody thinks that science is the end all, right? Well, here's scientists right here saying that, hey, vitamin D deficiencies could be the potential higher mortality rates, and they're keeping us indoors. I mean, I just can't believe people can't just ask these questions. All this documentation, everything that I'm telling you right now is on the internet, and instead, people are out here listening to Muff Diving Maddow. People are out here that are listening to Anderson Cooper, etc. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, if you're somebody that takes a ventilator, all right, a ventilator, dude, this is what's killing people. All right, do you understand? I mean, the ventilator is what's killing people, and the physicians and doctors have known this for years. Here it is right here. Is ventilator-associated pneumonia an independent risk factor for death? I mean, this is from Anesthesiology, the Society of Anesthesiologists. This is their fucking magazine. As you can see, April 2001 was when this paper was documented, and it is suggesting that Ventilator-associated pneumonia is an independent risk factor for death. That it should be labeled on the death certificate as ventilator-associated pneumonia. It's the ventilators that are making people fucking sick, folks. Do you understand that? It's the fucking ventilators that are making people sick. Wake up! We are under attack. It is time for you all to recognize what the fuck is going on here. All right? Ventilator-associated pneumonia, an independent risk factor for death. Right there, okay? And on top of which, New York. We've all heard about the bad things that are happening in New York, how it was the hot spot, how this, how that. Well, even in New York, okay, they have stopped using the goddamn ventilator because they recognized that it was causing people to fucking die. All right, it was causing people to fucking die, and that's why they have stopped using it. As a matter of fact, let me show you all that. Let me show you all that so you folks don't think that I'm just yanking that out of my fucking ass, all right? And this is off WebMD. WebMD, so everybody doesn't think that this is some two-bit website. Study, most New York COVID patients on ventilators died. Oh, I just told you all, I just showed you all a study from 2001 April from the Society of Anesthesiologists that said that ventilators should be an independent cause of death. And here you have, all right, in New York, when New York was a hot spot, ventilators causing the goddamn deaths in New York. All right? I mean, I'm not joking around. This is it. All right? This is what we have right here, folks, okay? And I think people need to understand that we are being lied to, we are being under attack, and I think that people need to have a more keen eye, okay, a more keen eye in what the hell the mainstream media is trying to shove down our throats. All right, literally. I mean, that's what they're trying to do with these goddamn COVID-19 tests. They're trying to shove some goddamn long stick with a damn cotton around it down our goddamn nose hole so it can touch our throats. And guess what they're blaming? You know what's miraculous about this? They're blaming bars. I mean, they're blaming, like, you know, nightclubs and lounges and bars. Why the hell are they targeting nightclubs and lounges at bars? Because that's where people talk. Do you understand that the American Revolution was inspired in the pubs out in New England in the 13 colonies, believe it or not? The national anthem was a pub song. You can listen to, you can read it up yourself. I mean, it even sounds like a bunch of guys drinking, you know, when you sing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the door? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Hitler, all right, not to bring up the evil fucking Hitler over here, but Hitler organized the Nazis via beer halls. I mean, do you understand? Bars are an essential social construct for people to exchange information in an informal setting. And that's why, in my opinion, they're targeting the bars and they're making everybody antisocial, and everybody out here is going nuts because they're under quarantine. And what I'd advise you to do, folks, is keep a keen eye and to protect yourself by practicing your Second Amendment. I mean, you saw that couple in St. Louis in which you had those so-called media protesters. The media called them protesters, even though they were fucking trying to break into those poor people's homes. They came out with guns. And guess what? When they came out with guns, that group decided, we ain't fucking with this house anymore, man. And they left. Do you understand that? That's what you need to prepare yourself to do, folks. You need to prepare yourself by practicing your Second Amendment. You need to fucking start talking to the people in your community, in your street, your neighbors, etc., and seriously have a conversation with them and say, look, whatever our pasts are, whether you like me or don't like me, we need to realize that we're, you know, if this looting, if this rioting, if violence comes to our neighborhood, we need to rely on each other and the men of this neighborhood who have guns because they're practicing their Second Amendment to protect their communities, to protect their families, because that's the only way we're going to be able to withstand whatever else the fucking globalists have for us. Because I'll tell you right now, folks, we are under major attack, and it's the globalists that are doing this. And what do I mean by globalists? I'm talking about the people that want to tear America down and not make it a superpower in the world anymore, that are trying to take out America as a superpower. All right, these globalist forces that are out here that want to consolidate power into a global central type of an authority. And we're already seeing semblances of it. I mean, the United Nations, the World Court, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. These are all globalist edifices attempting to consolidate power, and they want to break America down. And that's what they're doing, folks. They're trying to break us down because what the globalists call this is equalizing the world. They want every country in the world to be economically equal. And what, you may ask, is that economically equal status? Third world status. Third world status. And if you take a look at all the goddamn looting and riots that are going on in metropolises across the country, you take a look at the media calling violence and terrorism protests, they are definitely succeeding in their attempt at trying to create America into a third world country. And I strongly advise each and every American citizen that's out there, it's time for you to start recognizing that freedom isn't given, it's taken. And we need to take back our freedom before these goddamn globalists make us their goddamn fucking globalist slaves, and we have to answer to a globalist authority.